बोलिए सतगुरु महाराज की जय, सच्चे दरबार की जय. Would you rather not eat if you had to eat alone? Is the TV on or the music sounding when you're home alone or driving in your car alone? What about those gap moments when you're standing in line at the grocery store or at the bank? Do you try and fill them with something? Maybe looking at your phone or scrolling through social media? Is the concept of taking a trip alone sound scary to you? If you answered yes to most of these questions, you might have a fear of being alone. We've all heard the saying that man is a social being, but we've expanded this concept to every aspect of our lives to such an extent that we don't even know how to be alone anymore. From the minute we wake up to the minute we hit our head on the pillow at night, we have busied ourselves to such an extent that we don't have time for ourselves anymore. A simple man devoted to his family hung his head low when his spiritual master asked him how his meditation practice was going one day. To justify himself, he replied and said, "There is no time. From the minute I wake up to getting ready for work, taking care of my parents, spending time with my wife and child, before I know it, the day is over. There is no time for me." The saints said that these relationships are temporary. They will perish. And when you need them the most, they won't be able to help you. The man revolts and says, "How can you say that? I love my family dearly and they love me. And they would do anything for me if I needed them." So the saint said, "Let's put it to test." He taught the man over the next few days how to hold his breath for some time. And on a destined day, they decided that he was going to hold his breath while the rest of the family would think that he is dead. And the saint said, "Do not open your eyes till I ask you to." So they do just that. One morning, when the man's wife came to wake him up, he wouldn't wake up. She tried a couple of times, but there was no response. She yelled and screamed that something had happened to her husband. And when the parents got there, they said he was dead. They all burst out in tears and cried that why did he have to go so young? The father said, "I've lived my life. God, you should have taken me instead." The mother said, "He has a little child. He didn't even get to enjoy him. Why did you do this?" Shortly, the saint arrived at the scene and asked what the matter was, why everyone was crying. They explained the situation. So the saint said, "I could bring him back to life." All the people fell at his feet and said, "Please, please, please bring him back to life." The saint said, "But one of you would have to give up your life in his place." Now they all took a step back. The saint asked the father, "You've lived your life. Are you willing to give up your life for your son?" He says, "I have other children too. I can't be giving up my life for all of them." The saint turns to the mother, "Would you give up your life?" And she says, "I still have to take care of my children, still serve my husband. How can I give up my life?" He then turns to the wife who was crying the most. Would you give up your life? And she says, I'm still young. I haven't seen life yet. I could get married again and live a happy life. I can't give up my life for him. It is then that the saint asked the man to open his eyes. Sure enough, the man had realized that all the people he gave great importance to, who he sacrificed his self for, the saint was right. When the time comes, they won't be able to help. I'm sure we're all guilty of the same situation like this man, where we've busied ourselves to such an extent that we don't take out time for ourselves anymore. We have focused ourselves on everything outside of us, but have forgotten about the self. That self that has been with us through every moment of our life, has been with us through thick and thin, through every good experience and bad experience in our life. That self that has never left our side. And in today's day and age, with social media, it's made it possible to be surrounded with people, both physically and virtually, to such an extent that we don't even know how to be alone anymore. And there is a fear of being alone, and not just physically alone, but mentally alone as well. With the advent of social media and Facebook and FaceTiming that have made it easy for us to connect with people from across the world in an instant, to see their beautiful faces has become so easy, to have a conversation with family and friends that are spread across different continents. Yet, we are more alone than ever. Surveys suggest that 3 out of 5 North Americans feel alone. Loneliness, according to scientists, can decrease the lifespan of an individual to the same extent that smoking 15 cigarettes a day does. Loneliness has such a great impact on our physical and mental plane. And one does not have to be physically alone to experience loneliness. If we look at the life of Robin Williams, who was a comedian, who was an actor, who spent his life trying to make people laugh, but his loneliness led him down the path of depression and eventually suicide. In 2018, the rate of loneliness increased 13% from the year before. And I'm sure during this pandemic of the COVID-19, those numbers have increased many-fold. But the truth is that spending time alone has only become a foreign concept for the recent generations. But previously, for our ancestors, it was common to spend time alone, especially when they were looking for solutions to overcome situations and adversities in their life. They secluded themselves and turned within. We all know that Jesus Christ spent 40 days and 40 nights meditating, trying to overcome the temptations of the devil. In the Gurukul style of learning, children from a young age were taught a discipline of meditation, spent dedicated amount of time on a daily basis with themselves, connecting to their true nature, realizing what they needed to work on, what were their strengths. Loneliness is an emotional state that stems from a feeling of disconnection. So to overcome the fear of being alone or feelings of loneliness, we need to build connection. And build connection at 3 different levels. The first is building a connection with the self. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you will get to know yourself, the more you will enjoy your company. The people we have built connections with, it's because we've spent time with them, we've gotten to know them. So why not do the same with ourselves as well? Nikola Tesla said that the mind is the keenest and the sharpest in seclusion and uninterrupted solitude. He says originality thrives in seclusion and says be alone because that is where inventions are born. Be alone because that is when ideas are born. And if we look towards anyone who is remembered today to be successful, no matter what field it is, they had some sort of meditation or self-awareness practice. So enjoy the little gaps that come. Don't try and fill them with something. Try and be still and be aware of those moments. Start to enjoy the gaps. Because if in a melody there were no gaps, it wouldn't sound soothing to the ears. The gaps are just as important as the notes that are played. Jack Fong, who is a sociologist at the California Polytech University, who studies solitude, says that if individuals start to spend those moments with themselves, not only will they be confronted with who they are, but they will learn to outmaneuver those situations that bring toxicity in their lives. That once we learn to spend time with ourselves, once we recognize who we really are, what makes us happy, what makes us sad, what triggers us, what situations make us feel, the more equipped we will be in overcoming obstacles and struggles in our life. The more equipped we will be to handle our everyday life situations. And this connection to the self can be built in so many ways. Journaling is a great technique. When you write down how you feel in a situation, it makes it more real. It helps you recognize how you've evolved over time. It makes you realize what are your triggers. And then that equips you to know how to overcome those triggers. Self-introspection, meditation, self-awareness, dedicating a certain amount of time on a daily basis to just sit with yourself, to be one with your breath, to be aware of what are the thoughts that are going through your mind, to recognize what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then use those to help evolve and help grow yourself. The more connected you are to yourself, the more connected you will be to the people around you and to all of God's creation. Leading me to the second connection is building connection with the people around you. Building a community that you can lean on, that you can depend on whenever you need to. Whether it's spending time with family and friends on a regular basis, whether it's a small ritual that you have created where the family or friends get together on a weekly basis, maybe at a coffee shop, maybe at someone's house. But build a community for yourself that becomes your strength, that you can rely on. And lift your heads out of your phones. Look around. Make conversation. Smile at the people around you. Let those gaps become the norm, become a comfortable part of your lives. Kevin Higgins is one of the very few individuals who survived a suicide attempt by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And he says in his interview and in his book that on the day while he was headed to the Golden Gate Bridge, he was on a bus getting a ride there. And on the bus, he was crying profusely. And he says, if just one person asked me what the matter was, or asked me why I was upset, that would have prevented me from jumping off the bridge that day. We live in a world of privacy and lack of vulnerability, where we see people upset, but we choose not to ask, we choose not to intervene. But at least with your close family and friends, reach out to them. Maybe someone hasn't called in a long time. Reach out. It doesn't matter who makes the phone call. Reach out and ask how they're doing. Stay connected with one another. Social media can be a great tool to help build these connections. Use it to build your connections, not to become more isolated. And then the third is connection to the universe. Lao Tzu says that the ordinary man hates solitude, but the master embraces this aloneness, realizing that he is one with the whole universe. And it's true. This is something we have heard from time eternal, that we are all part and parcel of that Supreme, that we are made in the image of God, and so is all of God's creation. So in order to help you connect with yourself, help you build a deeper connection, spend time in nature. Because it is that same vibration, that same energy that reverberates between each and every one of us and all of God's creation. So spend some time in God's creation. Connect to that energy, connect to that vibration. And that will help you build a deeper connection at all levels. In ancient times, like I said, spending time alone was not a foreign concept. Instead, every individual had built a discipline of meditation, a discipline of connecting to their true self. In today's day and age, through the grace of Shri Ashutosh Maharaj, the ancient Vedic technique of Brahmgyan meditation, which is self-realization through the awakening of the third eye, is helping individuals build a deeper connection with themselves, to remove the perceptions of society and of the people around them, but to recognize what it is that they feel about themselves, how they visualize themselves, to recognize who they really are. If you want to build a deeper connection with yourself, start with these simple techniques of journaling, of spending some alone time with yourself, of embracing the gaps in your day, so that we can put an end to this epidemic of loneliness that is on the rise. On that note, we'll conclude today's discourse. Boliye Sadhguru Maharaj ki Jai, Sache Darbar ki Jai. Till next time, everyone, stay safe, stay connected, and God bless.